Hey guys, altcoin author here with Rekt Radio. Thanks for tuning in. Today I have the great pleasure of interviewing Brendan Millman of Phantom. For people that don't know Phantom, it's the largest, most popular, most well-reviewed wallet on the Solana blockchain. And as all of you know that are in crypto, Solana is the hottest thing going right now. It's in the news. There's a lot of discussion going on with how it can essentially be an Ethereum killer. So without further ado, Brandon, how's it going?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Doing good. I mean, I think this is a good platform for this Twitter Spaces. I'm seeing more and more podcasts being done on here. And when I looked at your resume, I think you know a thing or two about Twitter from really early on, right?
Yeah, I suppose that's where I cut my teeth initially. Yeah, before they had this type of feature. But yeah, I guess I'd say I know a thing or two about Twitter. That's right.
Did you start learning about crypto right about that time period, or when did you first jump in?
Yeah. So when I first jumped into, I started at Twitter like mid 2013 or so, and basically did like a full tour there. So a little bit over 4 years. And then, basically while I was there, and I feel like my story probably resonates with a lot of people out there at the moment who like work for quote unquote big tech. But basically over the years of working at a large scale consumer tech company, I feel like as many people do, have it eventually become disillusioned sort of with the typical work loop or the way of building applications, which usually involves a lot of A/B testing, politics, bureaucracy, roadblocks, et cetera. And it's also consumer applications. The way to build them is pretty well understood. So yeah, basically over those years became more, I feel like stagnated or I suppose disillusioned with it. And so, yeah, at the end of that, I knew I wanted to break into like a more nascent industry. I was doing quite a bit of research around a number of different things. And then eventually found myself reading a lot about Ethereum, which really, really blew my mind next to like what I was used to, because it was just a brand new way to think about how to build consumer applications, right? So instead of signing in with an email and password, you plug in your wallet, and instead of interacting with a closed private database, like everyone interacts with this huge open database. And so I felt like that really caught my interest, and eventually found myself, and this is 2017. So eventually found myself spending a lot more time reading white papers than doing my actual normal work. And so I took that as a good sign that's how I got my start in
I
2017.
I always think it's really interesting that people that start with blue chip CS educations as you did, and that hit a lot of the blue chip companies, Cisco and Twitter, and then are so compelled by the space that they go off to a company that focuses on crypto. I think that's an interesting story. So you came on the development side into 0x, and the most technical people I know did some sort of time at 0x and then went to Phantom. Do you feel like the experience at 0x gave you some more experience that like served you well with Phantom, or how did the experiences parallel?
Yeah, well, so yeah, back then, 2017, no one knew what blockchains were good for. And I think even today, people are still trying to figure it out. But yeah, back then, no one even knew what DeFi, like DeFi was at point, quote unquote, coined as a term, and NFTs and all that. So yeah, back then it was basically just did a big deep dive into decentralized exchange. There's a sort of a bunch of different companies out there, and everyone was sort of working on their slice of this like emerging Web 3.0 stack. So there's companies like MetaMask who are working on wallets. We were focusing on decentralized exchange. There's other people like Infura working on RPC infrastructure. So everyone's sort of in their lane, so to speak. And so over time at 0x, we became responsible for developing a number of pretty widely used dApps, or like Web 3.0 apps. So one of those was Matcha. So my co-founder, Chris, he was the general manager for Matcha.xyz. And I was personally responsible for 0x API, which is like the back end for Matcha, as well as like a number of other pretty prominent swap experiences on Ethereum. So like MetaMask, Zapper, et cetera. Anyway, over time, while developing decentralized exchange stuff, we became sort of power users of MetaMask. So, and when I say that, not only on the consumer side, but also on the developer side, we basically found that we were developing a wish list of items or things that we thought could be going better on the wallet side. We had a lot of experience using MetaMask and also developing with it. And so I feel like we had a lot of experience with wallets and a lot of things that we thought we could try out. And so that's how we got our start with this idea of working on a wallet. I'd say one other thing there as well is, my experience is primarily with Ethereum, but in more recent years, we saw companies, not only like 0x, but others as well, doing their own calculus around how they were going to maneuver past Ethereum or maneuver in just this sort of multi-network or multi-chain world in general. And we saw that, a big part of that calculus is that you have a prominent wallet or user-friendly wallet. And that was an underserved part of the market. And those two major things combined led us down this path of, hey, let's build a wallet, and with the medium to long-term goal of being a multi-chain wallet.
When you were doing the early development with the 0x,
Yeah.
we're seeing all that was going on with DeFi. Were you surprised that a lot of the early decentralized finance applications and volume was being done in Ethereum? Or did it seem pretty obvious that it would go that way?
Yeah, no, I think it was somewhat obvious. There's a lot of momentum around developer tooling, developer community, et cetera. So I think it made a ton of sense that Ethereum has sort of evolved to the point it is now, where it's very, very mature. Gas auction situation on Ethereum now is an expression of the demand for blockchain applications being so high. And because there's so much demand, that's why you're seeing all these crazy gas prices and transaction prices on Ethereum. So the only way to meet that demand is more supply spins up. And that's why you're seeing a lot of these L2s, alternative L1s coming online. How exactly that's going to pan out, whether it's EVM-based things or not, it's pretty up in the air. But I think most people can agree that the future is going to be some sort of multi-chain or multi-network world. I think even if you're like a pure Ethereum maximalist, you probably agree that Polygon and Optimism and Ethereum are going to be living alongside one another. And then from a user experience perspective or like user ergonomics perspective, people are going to be needing to hop between different networks, and hopping between different L1s from a user perspective is not that far of a leap from L1 to L2. Whether things are EVM based or not, or whether it's all going to culminate to EVM is still up in the air. It was not that big of a surprise that Ethereum is to the point it is now, just because of the amount of developer momentum that it had even back in 2017.
How were you first introduced to Solana?
That's a good question. The very first time was they actually visited the office back in 2018. It was like my very first time at the team. But more recently, Scott alluding to this earlier, but the medium to long-term vision is for Phantom sort of like be this wallet for a multi-chain world. And so instead of competing head on with MetaMask and come out the king of Ethereum, we knew we wanted to go multi-chains. We really wanted to place a bet on like a nascent ecosystem. And so we did a lot of research around which ecosystem to choose. So there's quite a few of them outside the Ethereum space. So Polkadot, Near, Cosmos, Solana, et cetera. We just did a lot of research around where we wanted to place our bet, and we ended up choosing Solana. That was earlier this year.
And it's coded in Rust, right? So did the Solidity carry over, or how different is it going from Ethereum to Solana?
From a wallet perspective, it's not that different. And that went into our decision-making as well, about where to go. So in terms of user ergonomics, the way you interact with Solana is very similar to how you would interact with Ethereum. You go to a dApp, you click connect, you have an address, you sign stuff, and you submit stuff to the chain. So that's it. And it's a straightforward versus some sort of sharded construction or something like that. So I'd say like all the experience definitely carried over. We're focusing mostly on the wallet or UI layer. So we're not writing a ton of Rust ourselves, but we are interacting with it. I'd say it pretty much carried over like almost one to one.
That's good. I heard about Solana for the first time, and I was just looking through crypto Twitter, and I saw a lot of pictures of Solana Beach, which is a city that's a few minutes away from me. And I'm like, wow, a lot of these crypto guys are picking Solana Beach for, I don't know why, and they're in front of the Solana Beach sign and they're thumbs upping. And I finally clicked on one. I'm like, oh, right. I heard about Sam Bankman-Fried talking about Solana. How prominent of a voice is he on behalf of the blockchain, would you say?
On a scale of 1 to 10, 7. Sometimes it's hard for me to understand how much of a bubble or like echo chamber my own slice of crypto Twitter is. But in my own current echo chamber, he's definitely pretty prominent. Obviously, they've put a lot of work into it with CRM and continue to help build out like core pieces of dev infrastructure There's this Armani who works on Serum. He works on this piece of tooling called Anchor, which is similar to Ethers and things like that. So they're definitely doing quite a bit to help contribute to the infrastructure, which is awesome. And then on Twitter, Sam tweets about Solana pretty often, but hard to judge. I don't have a good baseline of what's more than normal or not, but he's pretty outspoken about it.
Just jumping to Phantom, I've been using it for a while and using the Solana name service to get linked up with this at Rekt. And the wallet, the user interface is so seamless that in my mind, it mirrors, even improves, that's my commentary on the MetaMask experience. Was there a lot of developer evangelization that needed to be done, or were people so hungry for an easy to use and a pleasing UI for a Solana wallet, like when you first launched it, or how much was involved in getting the downloads and integrations to the numbers that they are today?
I'd say we're fortunate to have started building the wallet at this time versus MetaMask, for example, because when MetaMask started, maybe late 2016, early 2017, the world was just very different. And the types of users that they were servicing was way different. Most of the people using Ethereum at that moment were these very technical developers or like prosumers. And so obviously the right thing to do at that time was to service those users. So like I mentioned earlier as well, DeFi and NFTs are not even known as things that people would be doing, really. And so we're fortunate to have started Phantom at this time. So there's a lot more that's understood about the user base and understood about like the technology and the applications. So we got this opportunity to start anew or reimagine what the wallet could be like in this new context. That being said, though, we also had quite a bit of experience like building Matcha and building like pretty popular dApps on Ethereum. The growth was quite organic and people on Solana were pretty hungry for a nicer wallet. So that helped. And the community was also quite vocal about what they wanted as well. So that was awesome. That's typically not true when you're launching a consumer application in other industries, or you don't necessarily have such like direct feedback with users and all that. But in our case, and in crypto in general, you have these Discords or Twitter where people are banging down the doors for different features and just getting very hands-on with it. So this has been really awesome.
You know, we all read about A16Z and all the funds that are out there. You guys did an aggressive raise, and is the venture capital community softening? Is the thirst there when you approach these funds or institutions or endowments? Is there a level of understanding of DeFi and the blockchain more so now than like last few years in your experience, or how's it being approached by like the FI?
Yeah, well, I'd say although A16Z is more on the traditional VC camp, they've been in it for a pretty decent amount of time now, and they're pretty well versed in the whole crypto sphere. So I'd say besides A16Z, most of the firms that we targeted were more of like the crypto native flavor. But in general, there are quite a few other more traditional firms and they're trying to get into crypto or are taking an interest in it. It's definitely on the rise for sure. But A16Z, we didn't have to teach them anything. They're pretty deep in it.
They have some of, the best people that are there. The two big things this month on crypto Twitter related to Solana, of course, the downtime. And then I think Curve was unhappy with what they deemed to be unauthorized fork. When you approach people, do you have to be like a Solana apologist when you're talking to your Duke guys or development guys? Or are you pretty agnostic in terms of blockchains and you just like the utility of the Solana ecosystem for development right now?
Yeah, I will say when we were starting off and raising earlier this year, there was quite a bit of that. It was like, oh, Solana really, or like almost accusations of betrayal, which is quite bizarre. But nowadays, a lot of people get it more, or they see that there's other chains out there and that there are multiple things going on. So nowadays, I think the sentiment has definitely changed. Earlier this year, there was quite a bit of that going on, and which is quite sad. But we built up a lot of stuff on it. We helped contribute to a lot of different things. So it's always been confused about this kind of maximalist mindset. For us, Solana and all of that, but our medium to long-term vision is to service this multi-channel world. And we're sort of like blockchain maximalists, so to speak. We just want to help people use DeFi or NFT apps wherever they live, no matter what chain they're built on, how they're implemented. And that's how the vast majority of tech works today. No one cares if they're using Visa or MasterCard or if they're using AWS or whatever on the back end. They just know that there's this cool app that their other friends are using. They also want to participate. And so that's the way it should be, in my opinion.
I'd have to agree with you on that one. The loudest trumpeting that I'm hearing from Ethereum maximalists about the centralization, but the back and forth between Ethereum maximalists, because they've been in it for so long and are so apt to not let go of the death grip, is pretty pronounced. But the ones that do, I see go to different blockchains, are happy with the experience. And it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. I like projects that will encourage each other. They say a rising tide lifts all ships. So you're not benefiting your project by tearing down another one. Do you think that the future for the wallet is more integrations with decentralized applications in the wallet, or what are you looking for down the road for future development?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's going to be part of our challenge, is understanding how users' preferences develop, I suppose. But our main MO is we want to help people use decentralized applications. If that means incorporating more things in like a first party way into the wallet, like a more convenient form factor, then that's what we'll do. Swapping, that's sort of like a table stake thing that a lot of wallets do. And a lot of people love that and find it to be very convenient. Other verbs that people do with their crypto are also fair game. We also have like Solana staking in the wallet. People really love using that. One cool thing about being in this sort of wallet area is that there's a lot of people experimenting with these different dApps and trying them out. We get to help with that experimentation, and then we can let things play out and then see what people like to do and then incorporate them directly into the wallet if that's what users want.
I think the users also recognize that you're in many ways their entryway into the blockchain. They go to the website, but what MetaMask has done with checking the different exchanges for the best price, or what Exodus is doing with allowing you to stake on the wallet, seems like it's a really powerful position to be. Any last things that people should know about the wallet, or any last things that you think our audience would like to know about Solana?
One interesting observation I've made through this experience working on Solana is that it's typically a talking point that Solana doesn't support EVM and therefore is due to fail because there's so much momentum around EVM tooling. Because less tooling around like the current Solana sphere, that actually has created more of like a kernel of like genuine developer interest and community on Solana. Whereas the Binance Smart Chain, the vibe there is more dry-fi, copy and paste. Whereas on Solana, there's definitely a kernel of genuine developer community there. The whole EVM versus not thing is definitely a bit more nuanced than people think.
I love that. For the longest time, the meme was, what's a blockchain developer? And it's Control C, Control V. So many platforms just fork onto another blockchain and then try to market it and build a community. Solana, it looks like from everything that I'm seeing, is doing a lot more than that and doing a lot of innovative code, and you're at the forefront of that. I appreciate you being on the show today, Brandon.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
Guys, remember to follow me here at Rekt, or Altcoin Author on YouTube, or Rekt Radio on wherever you listen to your podcast. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.